What is your name?
Nicole.
Nicole, how old are you?
17.
17. I have some questions I'd like to ask you, all right? But in order to do so, I need to read what's called the Advice of Rights, all right? So I want you to follow along with that while I read it to you, okay? It says, before we ask any questions, you must understand your rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say will be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you any questions, and to have him with you during questioning. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you before any questioning if you wish. If you decide to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you will still have the right to stop answering at any time. You also have the right to stop answering at any time until you talk to a lawyer. All right, do you understand that? Okay. The next part is the waiver of rights. It says, I have read this statement of my rights and understand what my rights are. I am willing to make a statement and answer questions. I do not want a lawyer at this time. I understand and know what I am doing. No promises or threats have been made to me, and no pressure or coercion of any kind has been used against me. Do you understand that? Okay. Are you willing to answer some questions?
Yeah.
Okay. First thing I have for you is, were you operating a vehicle?
Yes.
Were you using a cell phone or other wireless communication device?
Yes.
Were you texting or making a phone call?
Yes.
Was it an emergency to do so?
No.
All right. Have you had anything to drink today?
No.
Have you had any injections or any drugs?
No.
Those are all the questions I have for you. The next thing I want to do is do what's called a portable breath test, all right? This is going to test for any alcohol in your system. You want to step up here, and what I need for you to do is just to blow into this, all right? Continuous blow. Okay? Zero reading. You were charged with reckless homicide, reckless driving, and your violation of the cell phone law, or your infraction, all right? The reckless homicide is a C felony. To bond out on that, it would be a $20,000 surety bond, which means you need $2,000 to a bondsman in order to bond out, all right? Along with the reckless homicide charge was a C felony, you were also charged with possession of marijuana and possession of paraphernalia. The bond on each of those is $4,000 apiece. So your total bond will be $28,000, 10%, all right? So $2,800 to bond out. You have any questions on that?
No.
Okay. Then set your paper down, step over there, place your heels in the yellow line facing this direction. Need you to look right here at this black camera. Turn to the left with your whole body. Place it here in the glass. Left hand, same thing. Quality on that one. Middle finger. Ring finger. And finally the pinky. Camera. And you're just going to look right there. And have a seat in the cell.
On or about May the 6th, 2011, Nicole did recklessly kill another human being and committed reckless homicide therein, a Class C felony in the state of Indiana. Charge number 2, Your Honor, possession of marijuana, reads as follows. On or about the 6th day of May 2011 in Whitley County, state of Indiana, Nicole did possess marijuana. And the information for count 3, possession of paraphernalia, a Class A misdemeanor, reads as follows. On or about the 6th day of May 2011 in Whitley County, state of Indiana, Nicole did possess an item, instrument, device, the primary purpose of which was to introduce into the human body a controlled substance, namely marijuana.
Ma'am, a Class C felony carries with it a minimum period of incarceration of 2 years and a maximum period of incarceration of 8 years and an advisory sentence of 4 years. It carries with it a minimum fine of $0 and a maximum fine of $10,000. A Class A misdemeanor carries with it a minimum fine of $0 and a maximum fine of $5,000 and a minimum period of incarceration of 0 days and a maximum period of incarceration of 1 year. In addition, if you were using a vehicle in the commission of possession of marijuana charge and you were found guilty or convicted of that offense, both your driver's license and your ability to register a motor vehicle will be suspended for a period of 180 days to a maximum of 2 years. Do you understand both the charges against you as well as the potential penalties for those charges?
Yes.
Mr. Voles, how does your client plead to these charges?
She pleads not guilty, Your Honor, and would request a jury trial.
Granted. Ma'am, the jury has found you guilty on all charges. Mr. Voles, do you wish to be heard regarding sentencing?
Yes, Your Honor, I do. Thank you. Nicole comes before this court. She's very remorseful for what's happened, but the bottom line is, Judge, this was just an accident. It couldn't be helped by anyone. Of course, she was texting while driving. Of course, the legislature has said that someone her age shouldn't do that, but it's only an infraction, and she didn't know that there could be further consequences to what she was doing that night. Of course, the police did find some marijuana in the car, and after testing her, found some marijuana in her system. But there was no evidence in our trial that she was actually intoxicated or impaired through the use of the marijuana, only that there was some found in her system. There was no evidence that the paraphernalia that was found in the car belonged to her. It actually belonged to her friend, but yet the jury found her guilty. But she has absolutely no responsibility for that paraphernalia. We think the judge should find that this was merely an accident, that there was nothing that Nicole could have done to prevent it, even though that the prosecutor subpoenaed her telephone records and found that there was a text message being sent at the very moment of the accident. There was no evidence that Nicole was distracted from the roadway through her text. She was looking up fairly consistently. It was not her fault that she didn't see the person in front of her, and we think that Nicole, even though the jury has found her guilty, should receive the minimum sentence in this case.
Mr. Sigler, do you wish to be heard regarding sentencing?
Yes, Your Honor, the state does wish to be heard. Your Honor, this is, in human terms, which I think are more compelling an argument even than the legal arguments I'll make to this court today. In human terms, this is a tragedy. It's a tragedy, Judge, because this was both predictable and preventable. It was predictable in that it seems to me, and I think what the jury saw, it was predictable in that young people today seem to have a cavalier attitude about the use and abuse of substances. It was preventable, Judge, because we know the dangers of texting and while driving. We know the dangers of drug use and driving, and combining those two things together, I think, rendered this a tragedy that could have been predicted and could have been prevented. That being said, I think this jury, Your Honor, was moved most specifically by the death of Tori in this particular case, and I am always reluctant at any time during any phase of a trial to invoke a person's memory. But in this particular case, Tori was a young woman who had her entire life in front of her, Judge. She had a family who loved her. She had friends who cared for her. She was an active student. She should have been at the point in her life where she was celebrating one of the great passages, one of the great celebrations of her prom. She should have been there. She wasn't. Instead, what was seen, the scene that her parents and her family and her friends saw that night was her lifeless body being pulled from the wreckage of a vehicle. The photographs shown to this jury made no bones, and they were unequivocally clear about the nature and extent of human trauma as it relates to somebody's carelessness, somebody's recklessness, and what that carelessness and recklessness can do to the human body when it's operating a vehicle at high speeds with marijuana in her system and with the distractions provided by a cell phone. Judge, this was predictable. It was preventable. A human being would be here today, but she is not, but for the actions of this person. We are asking the court, without reservation, to sentence her to the maximum sentence available to the court and to give her no possibility or hope for any portion of a suspended sentence in this case. Please send a message, Your Honor. Please send a message to the community. Please send a message to our schools and to our parents. Sentence this person to the maximum sentence. Incarcerate her for 8 years.
Thank you, Mr. Sigler. Ma'am, I've heard lots of testimony in this case. I heard you tell the jury that you're an honor student, that you've never even been written up in school, much less ever been in trouble with the law before. I heard you tell them about your community service involvement. I heard you tell them about all the things that you do to help other people in your community. But ma'am, the problem with that is none of it matters today. Because of your actions, Tori will never see graduation. She will never see marriage. She will never see the birth of a child. She will never experience any of the wonderful things that most people experience in life. She'll never even experience the bad things that make us better people. Because no matter how good a person you are, no matter how good your actions were up to this date, you cannot bring her back. She is gone. I don't know how important that message was to you or how important you felt it was to you, but it cost the life of your friend. A friend that will never be returned to us. I can't look past that. As much as I appreciate the things that you've done to this point in your life, you have now taken a life. And under these circumstances, I cannot condone that action. I'm going to sentence you to 8 years in the Indiana Department of Corrections, all to be served, all executed. You may finish your high school in the Department of Corrections. For the possession of marijuana charge, I'm going to sentence you to 1 year in the Department of Corrections. I'm going to suspend your license as well as your ability to register a motor vehicle for a period of 2 years. It's really not going to matter, ma'am, because you're not going to be driving a car for a long time. I'm also going to, and for possession of paraphernalia, I'm going to sentence you to 1 year in the Department of Corrections. Ma'am, that's the sentence of the court.